Can we talk about relationships for a little bit? Why are they so hard? That's a broad question. What's the number one thing that you really come across as far as difficulties in a relationship?
People will say that it's communication. We just need to learn how to communicate better. And I'll say, do you have the same problems with all of your friends and all your coworkers and everyone at church? And they'll say, no, it's just him or just her. I'll go, okay, then it's not communication. It rarely is it about communication. There's a bunch of answers to your question. And in our brand new book, Love and Relationship Secrets That Everyone Needs to Know, we probably give you 50, 60 different reasons of why relationships are very difficult. In the book, Ryan, we prove that 80% of relationships in the United States of America are terrible. Interesting. 80%. And I'll just give you a couple examples of how we prove it. Number one, first-time divorce still at 55%. First-time marriages, 55% are going to end in divorce. Second-time marriages, 62% will end in divorce. Third marriages, 68% will end in divorce. Okay, so the very first thing we have to say is that a healthy relationship in the United States of America is outrageously rare. Only 20% of relationships are healthy. So then why? Well, number one, we bed hop. People don't take time at the end of a failed relationship to examine what they did that needs to be changed, why they chose the partner they chose, why they stayed as long. So instead, to stay in denial that it's not me, it's you, I'm going to go into another relationship so I don't have to think about the pain. So I don't have to deal with the stuff that I did that may not be healthy. I don't have to deal with, and as we move too quickly into a new relationship, we miss the opportunity to heal. This past week on Friday, I started a new session with a couple, and I said to them, they were explaining all the challenges they have, and it took them about a half an hour for them to say how they hated this about this, their partner, and this was a pain in the butt, and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of it, I asked this question. I said, and I knew the answer, but I asked it anyway. Is this the first relationship that you've had with dysfunction? And the answer is always no. This is the fourth, fifth, sixth relationship. They all end the same. And that's what I'm saying to people. The reason they end the same is because you never slow down to look at what your role is that you need to change, to forgive your former partner. And this is a huge one. I don't care if they cheated on you with 100 people. I don't care if they stole $1 million from you. I don't care what they did. If you aren't able, with a professional, to work through and forgive them, you will carry the same resentments at that person to your next relationship. You might think you're not gonna, but I guarantee you are. I've been in this field for 40 years, Ryan. We have seen so many things that make it easy for me to give this advice that I'm giving to you. After 40 years of being in relationship counseling, I got to tell you, man, there ain't nothing I haven't seen. But the patterns that I see are what we write about in the book and what I'm sharing with you. Taking more time down, not jumping into a relationship. If you jump into a relationship, that is the quickest way to say that you have outrageous insecurity. Because someone who's really secure at the end of a bad relationship is going to go, time out, man. I need to get back into the right head. I need to get back with my friends. I need to get back with my hobbies that I let go of ever since I've been, in other words, we need to slow it down. If we were just to do this one thing, take a year off at the end of every relationship that ends. I mean, if you've dated someone for a week, you probably don't need a year off, although you might. But you've been in a relationship for a year or 2 years or 10 years or 30 years. Take time. Work with a professional. Don't repeat the same crap, because we're all repeating the same crap. New face, new name, new body, same dysfunction.
Is that what you talk about self-love? Is that?
It's one of the acts of self-love, is to take downtime, without a doubt. One of the most beautiful ways that you can prove you love yourself is to not jump into another relationship. Yeah. Self-love also is about what we eat, how much we eat, if we exercise, how much, if we pray, meditate, journal. Like, there's a billion arms to self-love. But in regards to relationships, the number one would be to take the time. And I'm going to keep going back to this. Work with a professional. Find someone that really is well-schooled with a lot of experience in relationships, and you'll save yourself a lot of headache down the road.
How do you let go of that resentment from another relationship, or even the one you're in? You might have resentment.
Yeah, we have a 4-step process of forgiveness that we take people through. But I'll just tell you step one, because it's the most important one, is to write down everything that you can think of, all the resentments that you might have against you, the person, your current partner or a past one. Write down every one that you can, specific. I'm angry that my partner is always late. I'm angry that my former partner cheated on me. I'm angry. In other words, get the emotion out. Get it out. The second step that I would like people to think about doing is write down what role might have you had in that dysfunction. This is a tough question because most of the time we're going to say none. She was the one, he was the one. But more often than not, Ryan, we need to write about the anger and the resentment that we have against this person. But then we need to say, what was my role? So one of the roles that a lot of people play is they stay too long. That might be it. Just before you, I worked with a brand new couple independently. And I said to the husband, I go, what do you think? You guys have been married for 4 years now. It's been hell on wheels for 4 straight years. What do you think your biggest responsibility is in this relationship? And he actually had an answer that surprised me. He said, David, I saw these behaviors before we got married and I went through with the marriage. I saw we weren't a good fit. I saw that this wasn't going to really turn, but he goes, I was too afraid to call it off. So in our counseling, we prove to people, Ryan, something that a lot of individuals are surprised by. Within the first 90 days of dating someone, you know everything you need to know. If this is going to work or it's not going to work, or if there are changes that need to be made. It's all within 90 days. Now, as an example, in the book, I tell a story, and I'm smiling right now because she's in a much better place. But a couple of years ago, I helped a woman married for 40 years, 3 children. I never thought she would get divorced. She found out that her husband was in a 10-year affair. Pretty serious stuff. So they ended up divorcing. And she came to me and just said, I don't think I'm ever going to get over this. I don't think I'm ever going to let this go. I don't think I'm ever. And she went on and on and on. She is so comfortable now being single. She's so at peace. We went through the 4 stages of forgiveness. She's forgiven her former husband. She saw him at about 2 weeks ago at a wedding. And the first time she saw him after the divorce, her stomach was a mess. And she saw him at the wedding and she was totally calm. She went up and said, hi, good to see you, and walked away. But that's because she did the work. And if we don't do the work with resentment, and I said this to her and all my clients, Ryan, I said, if you don't forgive I know it sounds like a crappy thing to forgive him when he had the 10-year affair, but let's go back in time. What was your first 30 days like? And she stopped dead in her tracks and she said, I've never told anyone any of this. I go, what's that? She goes, do you know what my first date with him was like? She said, he took me to a fraternity. He told me to sit in the living room. He'd be back. He came back 4 hours later. Didn't see him at all. I didn't know anyone there, so I sat there for 4 hours. And then he said, okay, let's go. No explanation, no anything. She said, David, 3 weeks after that, same thing happened at a different event. I knew, she said, what you said is true. I knew in the first 90 days that this was not a match, but I went for it anyway. And when we work with Ryan, people, it's amazing. People will say, no, our relationship was great for the first 90 days. And then when I have them go back and do writing, all of a sudden the memories start coming back and they go, oh my God. Yeah, he said this about a black guy within the first 30 days that we were together. He said this about a waitress, right? He was rude to a cashier. And I go, and you're wondering why you have a hard time with this relationship? He was sharing it all right in the beginning. As everyone does, Ryan, within 90 days, unless your head is in the sand, which most of ours is in 90 days, right? I mean, because of lust and desire and all this other kind of stuff, we're not seeing the obvious. And that's what I help people do, see the obvious.